Hey, welcome. Think about this for a second. If you were a pilot, you would never, ever take off without checking the weather, right? Well, in this explainer, we're going to look at a different kind of weather report, one for the markets. We're going to be using planetary cycles as this extra layer of data to really understand the conditions you're trading through on any given day. So let's get into it.
I mean, what if? What if you could see the potential for emotional turbulence, or maybe clear skies for growth? What if you could spot those sudden storms of volatility before the market even opens? This is the big idea we're digging into today. Using the planets not to predict the future, no, but to read the emotional and psychological currents that are driving market behavior right now. Okay, so let's be super clear about what we mean by financial astrology. Forget the crystal balls, that's not what this is. For us, as analysts and traders, this is a tool for reading sentiment. It's all about understanding the emotional climate of the market, adding this layer of psychological context on top of all the technical and fundamental analysis you're already doing. We've got a pretty full flight plan today. First, we'll introduce our main toolkit of inner planets. Then, we'll break down how to use the Sun and Moon for timing, Mercury and Venus for sentiment, and of course, the big one, Mars, as our action trigger. And then, we'll map all this theory directly onto market sectors and wrap it all up with a daily briefing you can literally start using tomorrow.
So, where do we even begin? Our focus is going to be on the inner planets. Think of them as the fast movers of the solar system. Their cycles are way quicker, which makes them the most relevant indicators for the day-to-day. And yeah, even hour-to-hour shifts in market psychology that are just so critical for short-term trading.
So here it is, our core toolkit: the Sun, the Moon, Mercury, Venus, and Mars. Because they move through the zodiac so fast, from the Moon's quick 28-day cycle all the way to Mars's 2-year journey, their influence really describes the immediate mood and behavior of the market. This makes them absolutely indispensable for traders working on those shorter time frames. All right, let's get into our first set of tools. We all know timing is everything in trading, and the two most fundamental bodies for this are the Sun and the Moon. Seriously, you can think of them as the market's own clock and calendar.
This slide really lays out the division of labor perfectly. The sun sets the overall theme for the day, the big external headline you see in the news. But the moon? The moon governs the internal emotional reaction to that theme. It's what drives the hour-by-hour mood swings. So one is the stage, and the other is the drama that actually unfolds on it.
The Sun is our daily spotlight. Its position helps us pinpoint the exact day an event is likely to physically happen. A huge announcement, a geopolitical event. And for us, this is crucial. It rules the fifth house, the house of speculation. So the Sun's position gives us a huge clue about the market's core speculative personality for that day.
Now, check out the Moon's role. If the Sun sets the theme for the day, the Moon tells us about the hour. Its rapid movement can help us pinpoint the hour of peak activity or peak emotion. And because it rules our private, emotional world, it basically acts as an amplifier. When the Moon makes an aspect to another planet, it can signal a moment of peak fear or greed, which makes it an incredible indicator for intraday volatility.
Okay, so we've got timing down. Now let's look at the mind of the market. What's it thinking, and what does it value? For those answers, we're going to turn to Mercury and Venus.
First up, we've got Mercury. In our world, Mercury is the speed of information. It governs the flow of news, of data, of communication. Basically, the very things that can take a stock from zero to hero, or the other way around, in just a few minutes.
So Mercury rules communication and the workplace. This makes it a really powerful indicator for sectors that are just driven by news and data. Think technology, media, and also service-based industries. When Mercury is prominent in the sky, you should expect markets to react fast and, yes, sometimes pretty erratically to announcements and data releases. Next up is Venus. Now, if Mercury is what the market is thinking, Venus is what the market desires. It represents value, but in a really specific, tangible way.
See, Venus rules the second house, the house of possessions and earned income. We're talking about the tangible things we own. This makes it a direct barometer for consumer sentiment and the health of the retail sector. The correlation is often really direct. Positive Venus alignments tend to happen during periods of goodwill and rising markets, while challenging ones can signal a downturn in spending.
Okay, so we've got timing and we've got sentiment. But what makes the market actually pull the trigger? For that, we have to look to the planet of action, of energy, of aggression, Mars. Yeah, the Mars effect usually unfolds in 3 really distinct steps. First, the pressure just builds. You can almost feel this impulsive energy in the air, a collective need to do something. Second, some event acts as a trigger and forces a reaction. And third, you see the result: sudden, aggressive, high-energy moves, whether it's a buying frenzy or total panic sell-off.
So how in the world do you trade this? Well, when Mars is active, expect fireworks. Volatility spikes and impulsive moves are just the norm. And because Mars rules the ego, the temptation for emotional, ego-driven trades is incredibly high. So your number one strategy during a Mars transit has to be disciplined risk management. Stick to your stops and do not let that warrior energy pull you into a fight you can't win.
Now, this is all fascinating theory, but how do we actually make it actionable? This is the part where we connect these planetary themes directly to specific stock market sectors. This is where the weather forecast really becomes your navigation chart.
This table right here is your cheat sheet. It's really the practical core of this whole explainer. You can see the direct lines. Venus ruling the second house of possessions. That links directly to retail and consumer goods. Mercury, ruling the third house of communication, points straight to tech and media. And the Sun, ruler of the fifth house of speculation, gives us insight into things like gaming, entertainment, and other high-risk assets. This is how you start using planetary positions for real sector analysis.
So, how do you put this all together into a daily practice? It's really about creating a simple, systematic briefing for yourself every single morning before the market opens.
This is it, your 5-point pre-flight checklist. Every morning, just ask these 5 questions. What's the sun's theme for the day? What's the moon's emotional mood for the hour? How is news flowing under Mercury? Where's the market placing its value with Venus? And finally, is Mars pointing to a trigger for sudden action? Answering these questions can frame your entire trading day and just prepare you for the psychological currents ahead.
And in the end, it all comes back to this. This is not about letting the planets dictate your trades. It's about being a better pilot. The planets don't fly the plane for you, but they do give you an incredibly detailed weather map of the atmospheric conditions, the market sentiment that you're going to be navigating. Your destination? That's still up to you.
We've given you the tools to read a whole new kind of chart, a weather map for market psychology. So the only question left is, now that you can read the forecast, what are you going to look for tomorrow morning? Thanks for joining me.